Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. I have put, honestly, an absurd amount of hours into the Black Ops 7 beta, mostly because of the open mosh pit. That completely turned the game around for me. We'll get into it as we get further on into the video, but after going through and playing this beta a ton, we obviously did our first initial impressions, my honest review of the game, after only playing it for a few hours right during the early access. But now after playing it in its entirety, I wanted to go through and give my final thoughts and my full impressions on Black Ops 7 so far, sort of my end of beta roundup here. Talk about how there's a lot of good things that really stood out to me, then really what they got to continue to work on for launch in a year that is probably going to be more competitive than ever for Call of Duty. Obviously, with Battlefield 6 dropping here, we've got the Battle Royale for that coming soon, Arc Raiders, and then next year with potentially GTA if that launches on time. Like, this is a big year for COD. It's a very pivotal year for COD, and things, quite frankly, this is where I'm going to start off with my positive side of things. We're not looking super good, and I know that sounds weird, but we're not looking super good out of the gate for Black Ops 7. Obviously, the reveal for it got just absolutely slammed. The start of the beta wasn't looking that great either. I said this in my initial impressions, but like, I thought there were core elements of the game that were really good, but it was largely overshadowed by a lot of the sweatiness and the connection issues, the netcode, the cheaters, and then introducing skill-based matchmaking off basically, and the open mosh pit completely turned things around for me. It's hard to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 being in a beta, being so limited, but just from the beta experience alone, like the early access with full skill-based, full gameplay that they just launched on day one was probably going to be like a 5.5, maybe a 6 out of 10 for me, because I could enjoy core features, but after a few games it's like, okay, I'm going to take a break for a little bit, let the skill base maybe calm down, and we'll see how it is when I try again. I'll have a snack or something, go hit the gym, whatever the case is, come back, play a little bit more. But after turning the open mosh pit on and doing that throughout the weekend, them updating some things, I would say it probably jumped up to maybe a 7.5, maybe an 8. Again, it's kind of a strange rating system. You know, I'm a COD fan at the end of the day. I know it's like illegal to say you like Call of Duty, but I wouldn't play it if I didn't enjoy it, right? I wouldn't post about it, wouldn't have a career about it if I didn't enjoy it. I want the games to be good at the end of the day, but I also recognize there's been a lot of faults as of late. But, you know, that was a huge game changer to me. Probably the biggest game changer was turning around that skill-based matchmaking. But that's still not going to land fully in my positives. So we'll talk how I'm more neutral on that as we get further into the video, but strictly focusing on the positives here, gameplay elements that I really enjoy. First up, the overclock system. I mentioned this in my original impressions video. Really enjoyed this. We'll mention more about overclocks a little bit later into the video as well, but their core systems, their core functions, really cool. Being able to upgrade my score streaks or my you know, stim shots or my semtexes, I thought that was really cool. It gives me more of an incentive to focus on integrating that stuff into my gameplay. So big fan of those. Still really on board with the movement for the most part. I don't really care too much if there's wall jumps or not in this game. I use them at times. I also don't feel like I'm forced to use them a lot, but just the core movement of how jumping feels, sliding feels, the sprint speeds, things of that nature. I think the movement feels very fluid, and once you get into that flow state, especially with certain perk setups, it just feels nice. I really do enjoy that quite a bit. I love the overall look of the game, from the HUD elements to the visuals and design there. I like that the game's very vibrant. It looks pretty. It's not the same, you know, scale across all maps where everything's just a different shade of gray, brown, and yellow like a lot of CODs seem to do. Really a nice variety here, and I think a lot of the maps look pretty good overall. They look pretty, but also the design of a lot of the maps. I found myself really enjoying the vast majority of them. Most of the maps in this beta I thought were really good. We'll leave one for the negatives coming up here in a bit, but I did like the map visuals, the map design, the overall game visuals as well. Love the strong streaks, mentioned this in my initial impressions video as well, minus the Gravemaker. I just don't think that needs to be in the game. We don't need a wall hack sniper rifle. I already have to deal with enough cheaters in game. We don't need it to be an official streak by any means. The response time to issues is also something I want to note here in my positives, and I fully believe this is because they have to respond well this year, because Battlefield is setting the example. But a day into the beta, which is typically much faster than we usually see, they were putting out patch notes, introducing the open mosh pit. Like, they've been pretty much on top of responding to feedback and addressing some of the loud issues so far within this beta. that's just something that I expect now to carry to launch. And if they don't follow up the same sort of, bar that they've set now, that'll be very disappointing. And I will hold them to that at launch. You can come back in a few months and say, hey, what's the communication like now? Are they still responding to issues right away? And I'll tell you straight up, yes or no. And if not, we're going to be talking about it and calling them on it. And then lastly here, I like the competition and the balance of the classes this year. Gunfighter versus perk greed, some of the attachment differences they've introduced here. I found myself really trying to weigh, okay, this gun would feel really good with 8 attachments rocking Gunfighter, but also I really want perk greed. I really want my enforcer bonus, but fast hands or flak jacket would feel really good on this loadout too. So like I actually had to compromise a little bit and make some decisions. And even with the gun builds themselves, 8 attachments versus 5, what I wanted the gun to do, how I wanted it to feel, I didn't find myself copy and pasting every single attachment setup onto every gun I was using, like what we've been doing for a while now. So I thought that balance was really good too. Beyond just the positives though, this is what I really want to focus on here in this video, is my more neutral takes, things that I think could improve, but I'm also partially okay with it, and especially my negative takeaways from this beta as well, because this ideally is where we can have the largest impact on the game. It's great to give them their flowers where it's deserved, but more than anything, I want to be critical of some things, although in a constructive way, to ideally help, introduce positive changes to the game or push for positive changes in the game. So as we get into this section of the video, if you guys enjoy it, you agree with some of the points I'm bringing up, if there's things that I don't touch on by the end of it that you want to drop down in the comments below, by all means, feel free to do so. But if you guys like what I'm saying here, be sure to drop a like on the video. It does help share it around and get the video out to new viewers. And also, if you are one of those new viewers, or maybe you have not subscribed yet, every single day I got you covered with all things going on in Call of Duty. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. So my main middle ground, like more neutral takeaway from this beta, ultimately is skill-based matchmaking and their approach to that. Because it is such a night and day difference. It's honestly a completely different game when I'm playing in the normal super strict skill-based playlist like we were on the first day of early access versus when I play the open mosh pit or any of the open playlists. And part of it is about the quality of opponent. Like when I'm playing the normal strict skill-based matchmaking, playlists, every match kind of plays the same. I have to try very hard to get my streaks, and if I get my streaks and I'm doing well, I know the enemy team's going to pick up on that. They're probably going to start hunting me a little bit more. It basically feels like I'm trying out for the CDL, and that's not for me. I'm okay. I'm comfortable with where I'm at in Call of Duty, right? Whereas when I go to the open mosh pit, I'm getting some sweaty players here and there. There's definitely some names, like I'll start a game, I get a couple of kills, I die a couple of times. It's like, okay, I know that skin, that guy's a little bit sweatier, but also this guy, I can just kind of farm if I can figure out where he's going to be, or if I kill him, I know he'll be back spawn, and you can kind of play around like that, right? So I've had really good matches where I'm close to dropping nukes and I have a 4 or 5 KD, and I've had other matches where it's like, you know what? Might back out of this one. I think I'm okay right now. So I like that balance. Every game's not the same, and that's the biggest to me. The netcode is so much better in the open playlist. It still has problems, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it felt the connection so much more consistent in the open mosh pit. So why is this in the middle ground, you might be asking? If I'm talking so highly of my experience in the open mosh pit, it comes down to, will they keep this at launch? If they do, then this jumps right into the top of the positive takeaway category. If they don't, it jumps to the biggest what are you doing part of the negative category. So until we know for sure how they're going to approach this, and there might be a post edit Zach here, maybe they make an announcement about this during the beta or before I upload this video. If that's the case, post edit Zach will be here. All right, well, it's post edit Zach here. As I'm sure you've seen since we covered it on this channel, of course, already, they did officially announce that skill-based matchmaking is out for Black Ops 7. Open matchmaking is going to be the default across the board. That's huge. That completely turns things around for me in terms of my expectations here. They also announced that disbanding lobbies are gone, so lobbies will be persistent. You'll stay in the same game match after match unless you want to leave, or you're trying to pick up a new party or whatever the case is there. So huge W there. Phenomenal news. We're going to jump over to our negative takeaways from this beta, and there are quite a few here. Some of them, again, will rehash from my initial impressions video. I still ran into cheaters in this beta, which is unfortunate. We all saw the viral clips that COD updates say were all from players who were banned, which if that's true, that's great, but they were still out there. It's still concerning to see that, especially in an early access beta. And until we have the full game with like the full, Ricochet updates and upgrades all in effect, Cheaters are going to be a top concern for me because there were guys that I ran into that I thought were suspicious, and I reported them and I got a confirmation that there was action taken on them, which I'll admit was faster than a lot of the reports that I send like over in Warzone and Black Ops 6, but I still had to do it even in early access. And so the fact that people were able to get in so easily with cheats so early is a red flag for me. So that's obviously going to be a negative takeaway. If I'm running into cheaters, that's never a good thing. And it's pretty ridiculous that we're still having to talk about this all this time later. Next thing I got to bring up, again, we were sort of just talking about it with like the neutral stuff there, but the netcode as a whole, even though my connection was far better in the open mosh pit playlists, there were still situations where I felt like I was dying really fast and around corners in situations where it's like, man, I feel like I shot that guy a lot, and I don't know if lag comp or what the situation was, kind of felt like ghost bullets at times, just didn't feel as consistent as it should. It was better than the normal playlist with strict skill-based matchmaking, but there is still some room to improve there. COD's netcode has been underwhelming for a long time now, and that's still something that I will year after year after year until it happens continue to push and continue to bring up. We need an infrastructure upgrade here, server upgrades of some capacity so that the game is consistent all of the time and not just in some matches where it feels like I'm, frying and it feels consistent and deaths are justified by what I saw on my screen, and not every other death is like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't add up, right? So the netcode's still concerning, even though it was better than it was at the start of the beta when there was no open mosh pits and playlists there. Another thing that I did not like about this beta was the audio. Couldn't hear footsteps. This is a conversation I, again, have to have like every single year. Or then some seasons it's like, hey, they fixed the audio. Then another update comes out and it's like, oh, they broke the audio. The next season, hey, they've actually kind of fixed the audio. It's this like constant up and down thing. And why is it an up and down thing? Fix it, keep it. If it's good, keep running it like that. I couldn't hear footsteps in this beta at all. Couldn't really get enemy direction clues from audio at all. There were very few specific situations where it's like, okay, sounds like somebody's running on metal. Hard to tell the verticality there, hard to tell how far away they are, but it was just not reliable. It was not something I could trust, which probably should be more of a consistent thing as well. So audio needs a lot of work. Didn't mind like the gunshot audio, weapon audio, stuff like that. That's all fine when enemies are shooting their guns. I can kind of tell where they're at, but overall, not really a huge fan of the audio quality in this game. This is more of a super niche thing, but still something that I found myself getting pretty frustrated by, especially because I was dying a lot because of it. The mantle speeds in this game feel very slow. For a game that is so smooth and really fast when you get into the groove with your movement and your jumps and your slide cancels and your wall hops and everything like that, when you go to mantle something, boy, it just takes forever to get your gun up and be able to fight again. And so I would love to see those smoothed out or sped up in some capacity so that they could go through and match the seamlessness of the other movement mechanics in game. Mantle speeds and the mantling animation was one that really stood out as like, ugh, every time I try and you do that in a gunfight or do that as a movement mechanic there to try and maybe flank some enemies or get up into a tricky spot, if there was someone looking at me, I had no chance whatsoever to even fight back because I was stuck in the animation and unable to get my sights up in a fast amount of time whatsoever. You heard me talk about the maps earlier, saying how I really enjoyed them. One I did not, and that was Blackheart. That map feels like it forces you to wall jump to be able to compete on it, and I like the other maps more because it didn't feel like wall jumping was forced, and not everyone wants to do that in their gameplay. You could play boots on the ground on other maps and find success, whereas in Blackheart it seemed very forced in the gameplay and didn't really seem that natural to me. And that's just like the inherent design. You have to use the wall jumps to get to one spawn to the other, or in mid if you want to use cover, you have to use the wall jumps basically to do it. Just wasn't a fan of how that was so forced into that map. But the other maps didn't really have that issue. There were spots where wall jumping was advantageous, but not absolutely necessary, right? So Blackheart did not like that map at all. A couple of gameplay design elements here that I wasn't a huge fan of. Having to use Looper to get multiple streaks in one life. I found myself trying to go on longer gun streaks and go for nukes and stuff. And if I wanted more UAVs, because I was playing this mainly solo, I had to rely on my random teammates, and I didn't like that. I want to be able to call in as many UAVs as I can. If I'm continuing my life and I'm getting 10, 15, 20 kills, I shouldn't just get a UAV for the first 4 kills and then that's it for my entire life, right? So having to use Looper as a perk there just kind of felt obnoxious, kind of takes away from some of the other advantageous perks there. So I'd love to just have looping streaks as a default system. They already talked a little bit about how some elements of dexterity would be default at launch, but all of dexterity should be default at launch, so that when you slide, you're always able to ADS. It's not that tack stance stuff, super awkward. That should be a perk instead, as I mentioned in my initial impressions video. So those things should be, you know, just core design elements of the game. Then another thing that I really did not like was overclock progression. You guys heard me talk about how much I enjoyed the overclock system, but the progression felt really inconsistent. I leveled up my stim to max overclock super fast. My other stuff, not so much. I don't know if it was broken, bugged, something there, but the overclock felt really, really slow to progress and be able to upgrade for certain things in game, whether it was streaks or some of the equipment and whatnot. So that just didn't seem consistent at all. I hope they sort that out. And then my final thing, I don't really know if I'd classify this as like a negative takeaway. This is more so just some concern in the back of my mind. Can they repeat some of the success that they had in this beta at launch? And that would require them to do things like no skill-based matchmaking as a whole, or if they needed to as a playlist, I'd much prefer it to just be the default matchmaking though, but you've got ranked play. That's where skill-based should be. So can they repeat that at launch? Can they repeat the consistency of the communication at launch here and actually responding to feedback in a quick manner and in an, you know, impactful manner, so that we actually notice these changes right away in game, and they're big, they're important, they're directly addressing our biggest concerns. They did that really well throughout the beta, I think, more so than in years past. Again, I think because they feel the pressure, which they should, but can they do this all again at launch, where it's gonna have to be even better? Can the anti-cheat actually be upgraded at launch so it feels even better and it actually, you know, calms some of the concern of, hey, is that guy cheating? Is that guy cheating? Is that guy cheating? Can they do it at launch? That's gonna be the ultimate question for this game. They had success in this beta in a lot of areas, way more than I expected. I had very low expectations for this game and for this beta this year. And the next reveal didn't really help a ton with my expectations. The worldwide reveal originally didn't help at all. They dropped my expectations even more. This beta completely altered my expectations in a very good way. That said, still gotta do it at launch. So that's my biggest thing. They got a formula that worked in the beta to an extent with certain things here. Can they keep building on that though? They're gonna have to, quite frankly, or Battlefield 6 will crush them this year, and Arc Raiders will pose a threat, and these other great FPS games that are dropping will pose a threat, and then GTA 6 comes rolling along and no other game on the planet matters. But overall, I enjoyed this beta a lot more than I expected. I think largely because of the open mosh pit. That's the ultimate biggest takeaway for me. So they have finally listened. That is a huge step forward. But can they keep doing it? Can they build off of it? Time is gonna tell. But it's also time for me to end the video. So that's gonna wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed it, you agree with the points that I brought up here, you wanna help share it around, get more eyes on it, so that ideally we can have that positive impact on gameplay, do me a favor, drop a like, and if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button on your way out to guarantee you're always up to date with everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.